Let's give Caleb a big round of applause.
Thank you. So what I want to do is show you guys how to protect your domains from being spoofed for email messaging. A lot of damage can be done to your domain through fake messages, and so you want to learn how to protect yourself. So let's see what we're going to cover here. First, I'm going to cover why you should care. Good start. After that, we're going to see what the records are, who should use them. Here's a tip, it's you. What happens to those who don't use them, or can happen. How to deploy them. How do you check your status, make sure you're all right, and then we'll do a quick review on just the quick steps on how to make sure you're compliant. Okay, so before I jump into all the technical stuff, one of the most helpful things one of my bosses ever did for me was interrupt me in the middle of something that I thought was important. And what he said was, "Why do I care?" And that stuck with me. So now before I start to talk or anything like that, I ask myself that question. So why is this important? Email delivery is critical to business. If your messages are not landing in people's inboxes, that's no good. So you want to make sure your stuff gets in and false stuff does not. Domain reputations are becoming bigger and bigger and more important. Things are moving away from just IP-based reputations and moving more toward domain reputation. So you want to protect the legitimacy of your domain by preventing spoofers, spammers, that sort of thing, and metrics. Now you think you've got metrics on how many emails you send out. Well, that's from your servers that you have control of. You don't have any metrics on stuff that other people are controlling and faking, or third parties that are sending on your behalf. You may not have those metrics, and DMARC can do that. So DMARC is really the focus of this. SPF and DKIM they're right up there, and everybody should be using those, but if you're not using DMARC, you're behind the ball, and I want to help you get there. Why else? If you're an independent contractor, there's at least 4 to 12 hours of billable work here if you're really polishing up DMARC, okay? So there's money in it for you. It's becoming a necessity. Like I said, domain reputations are important. You want to protect domain reputations. And a lot of the big boys, big players are getting to the point where they're going to require it to move forward with some of the services, third-party services, email, and that sort of thing. There are few experts in the field. Once again, we return to the money aspect. If you can be the one that stands out in the field in your organization or as an independent contractor, you're the one that makes the money because you're the one making stuff happen. As a hacker, you can learn some things about how to phish people. You'll be able to inspect these records and find out who's an easy phish target and who's not, right off the bat. So there's some value for everybody here. Okay, now that I've got your attention, I'm Caleb Christopher. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am the Director of Technical Operations at Sino Limited. We are a vulnerability assessment firm. We do security audits, both physical and information. And I lost my train of thought. Anyway, I'm also the administrator of Challenger Sports and Challenger Teamwear out of Lenexa. We're the largest soccer camp organization in the world. We're all across the U.S. and Canada. We've got a couple of other divisions. By the way, on that note, I'm looking for an intern. It's an unpaid position, but if you're looking for if you know somebody who's interested in a position where they get to touch all the knobs and buttons that make an organization work, have them call me or email me. I also stood up InfosecSite.com just last week to get stuff off the ground because I want to start making materials available to people who don't have security awareness training. There's so many people out there who have zero how to use the internet safely training that I want to make some of that stuff available. So you'll also be able to find my presentation there, InfosecSite.com, and you can copy and reuse the slides at will. Okay, so down into the meat of the issue. What are these things? DMARC, DKIM, and SPF. They are public DNS records. Anybody can look them up. So if you don't have them, it's easy to tell. SPF says who can send on your behalf and gives the recipient a little mailed by snippet in their mail client. DKIM adds a digital signature to verify who the sending domain is. Now this isn't which individual user sent the message, it just says that whoever sent that message is authorized to send the message on behalf of your domain. And DMARC is the line in the sand. What it does is it tells receiving servers, other servers, what to do with messages that purport to be from your domain. It runs the SPF and DKIM tests, and then you can get to tell the receiving server either accept the message, reject it, or quarantine it. And it adds reporting, so you get to see how many messages are coming in on behalf of your domain. So, SPF, Sender Policy Framework. Simply put, this is source validation. It allows MX servers to check if incoming mail is from an authorized host as specified by you in your DNS records. So, it answers the question, is such and such an IP address an authorized sender for your domain? 3 answers: accept, reject, or accept but mark. So generally you start with the soft fail, which is accept but mark. So that if the message already looks spammy, it gets put in the spam folder. But if it doesn't look spammy, it gets on through, and you can tighten up your policies later on. So this is where DKIM comes in, because it's a limited, SPF is limited in its scope because it only addresses specific IPs. It's a DNS lookup which results in an IP address. So if you're on shared infrastructure such as Amazon SES, if I'm going to write an SPF record for that, I have to allow all of Amazon SES infrastructure to send mail on behalf of my domain. Now if somebody else is a co-tenant in that same infrastructure and they're sending mail as me, the message passes the test. That's not cool. That's where DKIM comes in. DKIM, domain keys, identified mail. It authenticates with digital signatures using public key infrastructure, PKI. If you don't know what that is, you should go look it up if you're going to do anything with security. Study up, it's good stuff. It's the basis of security on the internet. So what it does not prevent message modification or spoofing. What it does is identify legitimate messages. Now, if the receiving mail server cares to look that stuff up, it can reject messages that don't line up with your policies and they don't have a valid signature. And DKIM allows you to uniquely validate multiple sending hosts. So I've got one for Amazon, I've got one for Google Apps for that infrastructure, Office 365. Everybody's going to have their own individual keys so that you can validate each source. So DMARC, this is the one that's the line in the sand. This is going to be the main focus of this talk, really. This is how you tell receiving servers to handle what does not align with both your SPF and your DKIM records. It also allows for you to apply that policy to only a percentage of your messages. So when a mail server receives 10,000 messages and you say only apply this policy to 5% of the messages, you're not going to get everything blocked if you screwed something up. And you get to audit your policies, you get the reporting back. That's the big deal. The word reporting is the biggest deal because you get to see what's going on, whether it's authorized or not. And you get that information and you can pursue fixing things if there's problems. It is noteworthy that DMARC will pass if the message passes either SPF or DKIM. And that's kind of a backwards compatibility type of thing. If you've got a mail server that only, or a mail service that can only do SPF or only DKIM, at least you're able to use DMARC. Okay, so I want to dig a little deeper into DMARC here. So as we're looking at this chart, blue is bad. These are different regions. Sorry this text is a little smaller than normal, but the US is here. 42% adoption rate. That is global organizations, not local. So of global organizations, 42% have started using DMARC. Now that doesn't mean they're up to 100%, reject everything that's not from explicitly who I say is allowed to send on my behalf, but they've started that process. And here's some of the verticals they're in. Once again, it gets smaller and smaller, sorry. Now this is from Return Path's DMARC Intelligence Report, which is linked in here, so if you want to find the slides and find that report, there's a lot of good info there. Social media is at the top of the list with about 59% adoption rate for DMARC. I suspect that's because it's easy or fun to spoof social media emails because people just click, and that's unsafe, so they want to secure their stuff. Next is technology sector. We understand the stuff, so we use it. And then it's a little bit disturbing that payment services, banking, and healthcare are so low. Healthcare is at 16% adoption. So if you're in that industry, start the ball rolling, make some money. Let's get this thing rolled out. Okay, let's get this taken care of. Should I use this? The question is not should I use these things, it's should I use them on all my domains? Well, let me answer that question with a question. Do drive-up ATMs have Braille on their buttons? And let me drive the point home. Does a one-legged duck swim in circles? Here we have an excellent example of that fact. If you know someone with this tattoo, I would pay $1 to see it in person. Also, I need to borrow $1. Okay, so what happens to those people who don't use it? What's the big deal? Well, I'm going to show some screenshots from Gmail just so you understand the interface that's going on. If you have no records, that's the same, what comes in is just an email. There's no way to prove who sent it. Whether it was you or somebody else, there's no way to prove it. It just lands in somebody's inbox. So hopefully it's all legit. But here we have an indicator from Gmail, a little question mark inside of a stop sign. Gmail is telling me that there is no way, no possible way for me to verify who actually sent this message, but they say that it's signup@markcloud.com. Okay? So that's no record. If you add an SPF record, you get something called a little mailed by snippet. And we see here in Gmail, we get from, to, date, subject, and mailed by this organization. So that's a slight improvement, helps with spam score, etc. If we move on to DKIM signatures, we get a signed by. So from, to, date, subject, mailed by, signed by, much better. And then when we get to DMARC, there's a little bit of various results because this is still on the uptake, which is why I'm telling you to get on the ball and be one of the first ones. Once you publish a policy, now Gmail displays this little lock key. So DocuSign.net, and I looked up this record, has 100% reject all messages that are not explicitly or from this explicit list of authorized servers. And you get this little authentication key. Now, they're very well protected, their mail delivery is top rate, etc. So that's what you want to shoot for. So, now that you know you need them, how do we do it? Let's take a look at the makeup of these records. We're going to break them down. We'll look at what's in them, what you can do with them, and then we'll show you some tools that'll help you build the records the right way so you're not doing a bunch of typos and silly stuff and breaking mail for your organization. It's also noteworthy that you do them in order: SPF, DKIM, and then DMARC. DMARC allows you to fix what you failed at doing in the first place with the other two. We're going to start with SPF. It does not stand for Spam Protection Factor, but it's a valid point. Slap it on SPF 10,000. Okay, so your first step is to enumerate senders. For every single domain, you compile a list of authorized senders. Now that's going to be, I'm a Google App Shop, so I'm going to have Gmail. Of course, that's an easy one for me. Amazon sends an email on my behalf, confirmations, emails, etc. I've got third-party business partners. They're all sending emails on my behalf, and they've all got an SPF inclusion. So you find all those senders, you call, email, look up their website, find out what their SPF record should be, and you add that to your own SPF record. You are going to publish one SPF record for your whole domain that includes all these sources that are authorized to send mail on your behalf. Rinse and repeat. You're going to do this for every single domain you have. Every single domain you have, you need an SPF record. Even if it does not send mail, because I can still spoof mail on behalf of your domain. So when you've got those lookalike domains to protect your main domain, you can still get damaged by the lookalike domains that you're not protecting. You've got to lock those down too. So what you do with those is you publish a null record, which is V equals SPF1 minus all. The minus says fail the test for all sources. So what you are saying is, anyone who's not on this list is not authorized to send on my behalf. Oh, that's a blank page. Thank you. That's my point. Okay, so let's break one of these records down. Here we see, again, small text, I'm sorry, SPF1, we have these operators, these are key. Plus means pass, minus means fail. We have a little tilde sign for soft fail. So when I say A, this is a nested DNS lookup. So when your mail server looks up me.com, it's going to find this SPF record that includes a plus A. That means pass mydomain.com. It's going to look up my domain and get any IPs that come back for the A record. Those are authorized to send mail. Same thing, we do that again with the MX record. I can specify other A records and other MX records. So for Amazon, they give an A record, which is *.amazonses.com. So I would have two things in that section. You can also allow or deny a specific IP or range of IPs. Here we see a tilde sign all. This is the way to start out if you are actually sending mail from this domain. You want a soft fail so that if the message looks spammy, you get to put it in spam. If it doesn't look spammy, it's still delivered and you haven't broken anything. If you ever see a question mark, hackers, let's listen up. if you ever see a question mark, what that tells me is that email admin does not know what they are doing. Because why go to the trouble of building a record that says these sources are explicitly allowed to send mail on my behalf, and then use a question mark which says accepted, and say only this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, oh, and everyone else is authorized to send. So, fish away, spoof away. Don't use the question mark. I'm sure they had some developmental reason for using it, but there's no good reason for you now. So, now I'm going to show you an example of a message that was blocked because somebody used the minus sign instead of the soft fail. SPF provides the framework, hence SPF framework. You have to give the instructions. So the system will only obey exactly what you tell it to do, just like any other computer program. For this reason, it's best to start with that soft fail. Until you get some reporting back with DMARC, you're going to leave things all soft and easy, and then you're going to crank up how stringent you are. So, in this example, we're going to see what happens to a legitimate message when it runs into a hard fail policy that you put in place. Here goes the message. There's your policy. This just backfired. You're fired. Okay? Don't be that email admin. Use the soft fail mechanism to start. You can always turn it up later. I just love watching this. Just the look on his face. It just takes too long.
German military, by the way. Seriously.
Okay, so let's look at DKIM. So it is noteworthy. Yeah, we want to avoid identity crises. We're going to sign our messages to make sure that people know who actually sent them, okay? If you don't know who this is, I can't help you. Okay. So it is noteworthy that DKIM is not a single record for a domain, but an individual record for each sending host. So what you're going to do, your steps here, you're going to finish SPF first. Okay? Finish SPF first, and then come to DKIM. You reuse your list of senders. So you've already got that. You've already done the legwork, which does take a while. You got to figure all this stuff out. So there's people with side projects, marketing projects, all sorts of stuff going on that you have no idea. And when you start turning up these policies, you're going to be like, when did they start sending mail for us? So that's why we take it easy. So you reuse that list, you're going to generate selectors and keys and publish a unique record for each of those sending hosts. So a record looks like this. The host there's a unique selector, for example, Google Apps. That selector is google._domain key, and then you publish a key. Value is v equals DKIM1. There is no version 2 yet. And then you have a key, 1024-bit or 2048. Always opt for the higher key, the larger key if you can. I've heard of somebody cracked a 1024-bit key at great effort. But if somebody can crack your key, they can sign messages as you. Not cool. So implementing DMARC. This is the good part. The line in the sand, you're going to start with a no action policy. So you're going to push a policy out that says, I just want to know what's going on. Don't do anything to my messages, deliver everything as it's been going on. I just need to audit and see what's going on here. You're going to publish a record that is host_DMARC. Now this is a single record for your domain. So SPF is one record, DKIM is multiple records, and DMARC is a single record. You start with a policy equals none. That means when Yahoo receives a message from me.com, Yahoo's going to log that, and I'm going to get an email back, a summary report. Well, you do have to specify an email address, but I truncated this here. So you gather aggregate data and accommodate. You're going to find out who's sending mail on your behalf, and you're going to find out, oh, there's a program that I forgot about. Now we're sending email confirmations out, and we forgot to add that to our SPF and DKIM list. This is your chance to fix that. Okay, so you gather that information. Next, you move up to quarantining. You're going to start saying, and you're going to add a policy. So when you move to policy to quarantine, you're going to change from policy equals none to quarantine. You're going to start with a small percentage. Start with 1%, 5%. Gather data, make sure things are going through the way you want them to, and then you start cranking it up. And then you've got a reporting URI for aggregate reports is going to be, don't use your domain because it sends a ton of XML reports that you have to use a translator for. I'll show you an easier way to do it, but you have to specify where you want reports to go. So again, you're going to gather aggregate data, make sure a lot of stuff's not getting rejected that shouldn't be, and make your adjustments. Step 3, we ease into rejecting messages. Now DocuSign has 100% reject. That's what you all want to work toward. So we start, same thing, we just changed the P equals to reject. Start with a low percentage and you're going to work it back up. Okay, let's look at a sample. Here we go, and this one's doing reject. These are the only two things you have to have. You have to have the version and a policy specified, and they have to be in that order. All the other tags are optional, and it doesn't matter what order they're in. So you have the version name, the policy. This is reporting URI for forensic reports, which is when you really start getting into rejecting, you want to see the content of the messages. With the aggregate reports, you don't get the content, you just get the volume. Subdomain policy. There is recently an article was published indicating that subdomain abuse is going mainstream, and so what you want to do is publish a subdomain policy. If you don't send from any other thing except your primary domain, you publish a subdomain policy, which is technically it's a second DMARC record that says SP, or no, this one is included in the primary record, I'm sorry. It says SP reject. So you're going to blanket reject everything that's not from your primary domain. However, with the way DMARC works, if you do have a subdomain like confirmations@me.com, you can still specify that with a separate DMARC record for that subdomain. And the way the lookups work is that when it finds the subdomain first, it will allow the message to go through before it finds the subdomain blanket reject. There's a lot of stuff to dig into here if you're interested in going through that. You can find much more information with a Google search. So, here's another example. You guys are going to love this. You do not want to overact. Once again, you can cause an accident. Here, we're going to see an analogy of an email message that failed to be delivered because the people, the email administrators, were a little too anxious to push out their policy. Okay, so here we see our email message not delivered properly. Now, you see the two email administrators here. Now, see what they did was they went to 100% reject a little bit too fast. Here's their policy, they pushed it right out there. They should have waited a little longer, gathered more information, and then they could have put the policy in the right place. And they wouldn't have that look on their face. Look at that guy. Don't be that email admin, okay? How do we read these things? Like I said, I will say, again, having them sent to your address is not a great idea because you're going to get a ton of zip files with XML reports that you can't read, okay? Each recipient sends their own aggregate reports. So when me.com sends emails to someone at yahoo.com and someone at gmail.com and someone at comcast.net, each of those providers sends me a separate report with the volume of emails that they've received or their users have received on my behalf. So there's a site called DMARC. Now if you're wanting to try this with one or two records, that's great. They have an XML to human converter. It works great, but while you're there, you might as well just sign up for a free account. Now, it's free for 2 weeks, and then after that, it's 20 bucks a month if you've got moderate activity. If you're low activity, they don't charge you anything. So use their dashboard. What they can do is help you to add domains. They'll generate policies for you, and they'll show you all the reporting on a dashboard, which you can drill down into all the details. It makes it really easy. I can't recommend it enough if you're going to pursue this path. Oh, I have a demo. So challengersports.com is the organization I'm working for. I did is this my dashboard? I just want to, yeah, this is just one report. So this is a single report. The source is Yahoo Inc. So this is where I use their XML to human converter tool. Let me zoom that a little bit. There we go. So we have nice pie charts. You can export and print in vector graphics and everything. So if you're into presentations or you want to legitimize your work for the last 6 months or something like that, I mean, you can do that. So what we see, DMARC capable messages, Amazon SES. Now I have 0% DMARC compliance for SPF and DKIM. Therefore, I missed something in stages 1 and 2 and I have to go back and fix it. Now I just recently started doing it, so I haven't tackled that haven't jumped on that ball yet, but I can get details as to where they're coming from, all the subdomains, etc. You can drill down into all this stuff. Okay, of course it's not going to be cooperative demos. Haha. Google, well, I'm a Google app shop, 100%. So Yahoo, what this is a report from Yahoo. Yahoo received 262 messages from Google as the sender. Google's infrastructure sent 262 messages to users at Yahoo. Yahoo's telling me they got those. 100% of those messages are compliant. That's great. We can look at threats and unknowns, and it gives geographic stuff. I see here I've got IQ-200.ru sending mail on behalf of challengersports.com. That's not cool. So I do want to crank up these policies. That means I've got to finish my SPF and DKIM records and then start with the reject policy. They also, so they have the dashboard. I can see in the last 7 days, 71,000 messages have been sent on behalf of my domains. You can add more than one domain. So if you're going to act as a service provider, now here's some of that subdomain abuse. LinkedIn.challengersports is not a legitimate subdomain, and that's one of the main ones that's been going out and sending mail. I've got a bunch of, these are probably compromised email accounts or something like that, trying to send on my behalf. So I see there's no SPF record for that subdomain. So what I need to do is publish a record, include an SP equals reject policy. Back to this. Okay, how do you check status? No. Sorry, presentation already broke. There is no live questions. I screwed that up. Anyway, how do you check your status? There's a series of tools, a variety of tools out there. You can do an old-fashioned DNS lookup and find out anything. All these are public records, so you can look up the details yourself for your own domain or anyone else's. This is one of my favorites, hence the star, mxtoolbox.com/domain/whatever domain you want to look up. So let's take an opportunity to look up SecKC's domain. Where's my mouse? What I see here, seckc.org, this is the MX Toolbox lookup. What I find is seckc.org has no SPF record whatsoever. Spoof me! So I went ahead and sent myself a message from seckc.org. Let's see if I can get that to show. Oh, it's on the wrong window. There we go. Okay. So I have a message in my inbox, SecKC confirmations. I have a message. Does this address exist? Subscriptions at seckc.org? Because you guys are sending me crap. Let's look at this. Now, here we go. We've got this Gmail indicator that says there's no way for me to prove who this came from. Zoom that a little more. You guys have subscribed me to the following mailing lists. Do woodpeckers get headaches? The nature of navel lint, etc., etc., the effects of cocaine on bees, all about George Costanza. What are you guys doing to me? Untwisting twisters. I've been added to all these mailing lists. Yes, I would like to unsubscribe. Please unsubscribe me. Oh snap, I just got ransomware from SecKC. Thanks guys. Way to go. Publish an SPF and DKIM record and then put DMARC in place, guys. Come on.
We never send email. We only use Eventbrite.
I don't care. I can still spoof as you.
We don't care.
Okay. Shenanigans. Woo! The smallest security event in the world. Here's an example of MX Toolbox. I'm doing a DMARC lookup of DocuSign. Their policy is right here. DMARC 1, policy equals reject. Subdomain policy, reject. Reporting admin, mail to at whatever their address is. Okay? And they're at 100%. So that's what you want to work toward, okay? And DMARCian.com, I already showed you that dashboard. Find them, use them. They're very, very helpful. Your path to protection. Let's do a quick review. What are you going to do? Step 1, identify all your senders, and you're going to build an SPF and a DKIM record for all of those. 2, you publish a no-action DMARC policy so that you can gather information. And then you gradually enable your quarantine and reject policies. Some challenges you might face. SPF, since they are nested lookups, is limited to 10 DNS lookups inside of the record. There's a tool from Word to the Wise that can help you minify that. But if you've got so many third-party sending entities that you can't fit them into 10 lookups, you might consider using confirmations@u.com or something like that. Use a subdomain to send that, because you've got to keep this SPF record below 10 lookups, or it's going to stop at 10 and the rest are just going to be, I don't know. I've not tried it. Somebody try it. DKIM. Some providers require you to publish a CNAME record instead of a text record. Now, that's not a problem, except that some registrars don't accept the underscore character in direct violation of RFC 1034. Therefore, you have to spend hours on the phone and doing help desk tickets for them to manually publish something on your behalf, and then if they typo it, you're on the phone for a lot longer. This did happen to me. It sucks. It's lame. Don't use network solutions. Resources. Find my slideshow, infosexsite.com. Come get the slideshow. Here are all the resources, some handy tools, links, articles, etc. that helped me build this presentation. Look into those if you're interested. You can come back to that yourself. And this is the part where you don't contact me for that kind of stuff, and I'll open for questions. However, before I get to that, I would like to say I got into this whole thing after I did a free domain spoof test from KnowBe4. So if you've not heard of KnowBe4, they do information security training. They let you, as an email administrator, this is fun, you can fish your users. That Woodpecker's sign-up list, or email list that I sent to myself, was one of the ones that I sent to my users after they gave me a troubling day. It's nice to just relax, go build a phishing email and fish my users. I made a Pokemon one for some guy who was annoying me, and he clicked on that, and he got a little ransomware pop and scared the crap out of him. So, if you want to try out KnowBe4, contact me. I'm a reseller. I'd love to help you out, give you a free demo. Okay, any questions?
What's the cost that you put into setting up your domain with DMARC?
What's the cost I put into DMARC? Just my man hours so far. I mean, it's been an experience of study for me.
On the percentages, that only like that percentage of time that it's going to go through that system, or
in the DMARC policy, the percentages. So the percentage in the DMARC policy says, now you're specifying a policy that somebody else is going to look up and follow. So when I send you a message, your server says, hey, what's going on? SPF, DKIM, DMARC, does it pass? If it doesn't pass, my percentage says only apply it to 1 out of 100 messages, 5 out of 100 messages, 10. And then you'll tell me how many you rejected because they failed, and that'll help me get into the specifics of what's going on. Why are these failing? Is it good that they're failing? Is it bad that they're failing? And then I can fix SPF and DKIM to accommodate.
Good.